So, what do you think makes this new series unique and will be worthwhile to watch for the potential viewer?
Well, I think that, given the context of these times, a little escapist TV is never too bad, right? I think that this show for me kind of harkens back to like classic 90s, 2000s action thrillers.
Nice.
It's a pretty rock'em sock'em show with a little bit of espionage and a little bit of heart mixed into it. We also don't get a lot of shows based in Alaska and
Sure.
around the Fairbanks area, which is always great. And also, we don't get to see many natives in contemporary times on TV much. And so,
Sure.
I play a native from Alaska native from northern Alaska, and there's other native folks who are portrayed in the show, and it's always just good to see.
Excellent. So, speaking of Alaska, because of its distance from the other 48 states, it has an air of mystery about it. How does that express itself in the show and through the context of your character, who is a native Alaskan?
That's a great question. Like you said, the idea of Alaska is for most Americans an idea, right? It's something that we see on TV. I mean, its nickname is The Last Frontier, which is represented in the actual title of the show. So it's always this idea of the edges of civilization. But given that it's Indigenous Peoples Day, I think it's important for us to not only acknowledge Native peoples, but also ground our perspectives and acknowledge that though from a Western perspective, from somebody that may be from the lower 48, it is seen as the frontier, but for the Native Alaskans who live there, it is the center of the universe. It's the place that their people have lived since time immemorial. And I think that this show does its best to depict the sense of a tight-knit community that you find in northern Alaska,
Sure.
but also the dangers of the wild landscape too.
The frontier.
Yeah.
So this is a heavy hitter ensemble cast. And what did you learn about acting and connecting with Jason Clarke as a character to your character? And what do you think the cast learned from your performance?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, Jason has said it himself, but he's learned eyebrow work because he's like, man, you got some pretty heavy duty eyebrows there, brother. He marks on my eyebrows because I'm a very expressive person with my eyebrows, which I actually try to tone down because I was like, all right, I got to be a stoic, federal law enforcement here.
Sure.
But what I've learned from Jason is just work ethic. He is a machine. He threw himself entirely into this role, and I could not be more inspired, but also scared of what it takes to be number one on the call sheet, to be the lead. Because, most folks don't know, he's Australian. He naturally speaks with an Australian accent, so he had to learn not only all this, jargon dialogue that's full of, military terms, but also to do it with an American English accent was pretty awesome to see. And he's also so giving on set of giving advice, being a really strong advocate from everyone from secondary actors like my characters to our background actors. So I really got to see a professional at work, but also someone that really cares about the craft and cares about the other actors.
I've always admired him. I just think he's one of those consummate guys who just knocks any role out of the park.
Yeah.
There are a couple of levels of law enforcement agencies depicted in the show, the CIA and the U.S. Marshal's Office. From how you are depicting the agencies, what did you learn about how they operate, both in reality and in the context of the series?
Well, when you're doing an action thriller, I think you kind of have to dispel belief, right? And so, in the situation of this show, I did my research, and I'm like, I think there would be a few more actors that play involved.
Yeah.
So when I got this role, I actually did my own research. I reached out to actually a number of native U.S. federal marshals.
Interesting.
And put the feelers out. Hey, does anyone know any marshals? And that sent me down the rabbit hole to find some folks, and I actually ended up talking to some former and current acting deputy U.S. marshals. And that was very informative for me to really understand the perspective, why a lot of folks go into the Marshal Service, what brought them. I mean, a lot of U.S. Marshals are either through the military,
Right.
or they come through tribal law enforcement, through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or tribal law officers. And no matter where they come from, a lot of them are really community based, and they tend to be stationed in their home community areas.
Right.
And so it's as opposed to a lot of non-native federal marshals are from other places and they're stationed
Right.
places they're not familiar with. So that was a bit different too in this take, is that I'm from Fairbanks. My character's from Fairbanks.
Right.
Yeah.
So you wrote some episodes of Reservation Dogs. What did you learn about the process of converting a script to production? And what episode do you think you did your best work?
I think episodes 1 and 2 of the second season was my favorite work on Reservation Dogs. That's where I co-wrote with Sterling Harjo.
Okay.
And you learn to write. I guess I learned how to write for production at times. Right, is being mindful. It's a small production. Like Sterling Harjo is my good brother, so literally in the writing process, he's like, "Let's change these words so that I can save some money on set." Right, like instead of this being a large outdoor crowd,
Sure.
let's bring this inside.
Right.
I learned that from him co-writing. I'm like, hey, thinking ahead of like how can we make this easier on everybody,
Right.
on set, but still maintain the heart of the story. Make sure that you're writing a well-crafted story is something I learned. And
That's really valuable, type of information.
And the other thing is when you're writing on a show that's already in the works, you already have a season behind you.
Right.
You can write for your characters better. And one thing I learned is leaving room for silence for your actors to fill in the blank. Like have them,
Sure.
Use that silence to deliver what you need to say.
That's great. So you're a multi-hybrid performer as both a dramatic actor and sketch comedian. What themes do you talk about in your sketch act, the 1491s, considering today is Columbus Day?
I like the quotation marks, yes. I think that one is being from a sketch comic and improv comedy background, the beautiful nature of working with an ensemble, right? And having the fluidity to create something with others, I think is always inspiring me, has always inspired me as a performer. I feel like I work my best in an ensemble when I'm working with others and knowing that, hey, we're sharing a space together,
Sure.
we're creating together.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think of the previous question around working with Jason or working with anybody else.
Right.
Look, I've been on sets where it's very much like, you have your lines, I have my lines,
Right,
but
right.
we're not
Connected.
We're not connected here.
Yeah.
And this felt the opposite of that, where we were like, okay, we are creating a space, we're creating a story together that each of us are equally a part of. Though one character may have more screen time, we are equally creating this story together.
Because of your activism, what was a moment in your life when you realized that as a Native American, you wanted to represent your people as an educator to the rest of the world on the historic nature of colonization and indigenous peoples and their contributions to this country?
I went to college at UC Berkeley in California, and I had some friends of mine who were actually wanting to become teachers. And so they were on that process to become a teacher, or they were becoming teachers, and they shared with me that in the accrediting process, the teachers have to pass a test. They have to take a test on the curriculum that they're going to be teaching, right? Makes sense. And they were looking at 5th grade, and one of the test questions was about the mission system. Folks that don't know, in California, the Spanish instituted this system called a mission system, where they forced Native peoples to force them to live and work as indentured slaves on these missions as a way to, assimilate them and colonize them. And they were very destructive, lots of death, lots of people died of disease, malnutrition. It was very, very horrible, and it was a critical part of their structural genocide that they put upon Native California natives. And in the test, they had to talk about what are the benefits of the mission system, and it was a multiple choice question, and there was no option to talk about, well, that's a set up question, what about the negative aspects of it? And it was that moment where I realized that I myself, there's so much need to share our stories, not only about the past but about the present as well, because those in the present we are actively crafting the past, right? We are actively deciding what stories get told.
Right.
And so listening to my friends who are going to become teachers, I felt inspired and continue to be inspired to make sure that we are telling stories that fully describe what happened and its impacts.
That's beautiful, man. So finally, on this Indigenous Peoples Day, what do you want the citizens of the United States to always remember about its native peoples?
That this nation is still was formed and is still on stolen land. I think that is absolutely essential. And I think I like to believe, most folks know this, but the very concept of electoral democracy comes from Indigenous peoples, and that the founding fathers of the United States of America were inspired by the Haudenosaunee people of what is currently upstate New York on how to vote and how to create a democracy that is representative of the people and for the people.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2025.